a really incredibly difficult space from marketeer to consumer, And again, a couple of pieces I saw recently. There was a piece yesterday which said that ad fraud is nearly impossible to monitor. And then there was a stat from a survey that I saw that said 70% of the media value is being stuck in ad tech before it gets to the media buy moving forward. Now in the UK, I don't know if it's the same here, the average tenure, the amount of time a CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, stays in the job is about 18 months. The average tenure for a procurement director in the same company is over 5 years. And that's starting to show you the shape of how marketing is being landed in this ecosystem. And also the consumer. I like stats. Another stat, there's 7.3 billion people in the world. 6.1 billion of them have mobile phones. But only 4.5 million have running water and toilets. Which means there's more mobile phones than there is toilets in the world. The average person looks at their phone 100 times a day. Now, if there's anyone in the audience under the age of about 21, you'll know that's 100 times an hour. I've got 4 children, so I understand that. Also, the attention span in 2000 for a consumer to receive marketing messages was 12 seconds. The attention span in 2013 to receive marketing messages is 8 seconds. That's 1 second shorter than the attention span of a goldfish. So that's what we're facing to get messages through. The second point is I was looking for data from people around the ecosystem about what they were predicting would happen over the next 2 or 3 years. And I came across this study by Goldman Sachs, and I thought it was very pertinent. And they said in the Goldman Sachs study that on the internet there's a huge amount of undifferentiated oversupply of weak content that's really built not by consumer demand but by ad tech, by finance companies seeing opportunities with ad tech, putting money into ad tech. And their prediction over the next 2 years is that will change. It will change that people who have premium content will align with people who have great pipes, great distribution, which means Facebook, Google, Apple, etc. And I think the live example is with us here and now, which is the AT&T acquisition of Time Warner. When asked, the CEO asked, why are you buying Time Warner? If they buy it, depends on Trump, doesn't it? If they buy it, the CEO said, because great content always wins. But that's not shown in the figures at the moment. So if ever you wanted a reason not to leave the EU, this is pretty much it. Because on this chart, the forecast for advertising in the UK, pre-Brexit, post-Brexit. The post-Brexit forecast for national newspapers, for example, is that advertising will fall -20 to -25%. That's on the back of advertising that fell 15% year on year. But the internet continues to grow. And the other stat that came out was 72p, 72 cents, 72% of all online advertising is currently going to 2 companies, Google and Facebook. And I wanted to understand why. Why do advertising and advertising agencies perceive this solution? And this is taken directly from an advertiser's deck. And it says that this continuous love affair with television continues. You know, CMOs, particularly if the tenure is about 18 months, television builds brands. Television creates brands. And this particular focus for procurement directors is that you can buy more digital scale at a lower price every year. And actually then everything else is in the squeeze middle. And that's, when we look at it in real terms, that's absolutely the case, which is, this is just the UK, but I would anticipate it's very similar in France, which is in real terms advertising has not grown. If we take out inflation, and on the back of that Goldman Sachs report, they also said that traditional disruptive advertising would decline as clients spent more money on the creation of their own content. And really what digital has done is taken share from the other platforms. But I'm optimistic, for good reason, one hopes. For this reason, people always want to hear a great story well told. Now, whether that's the fact they've found new cave paintings in the Dordogne, or the fact that in Paris you're not adhering to the laws around pollution and some people with wrong number plates are driving in town on the wrong days, people will always gravitate to great stories. And great stories are really the heart of the content business. Deloitte did a survey working out the value of media companies. And the most valuable media company is the one that creates the content and owns the pipes. So the highest margin, which is a TV company that creates its content and owns the pipes, cable for example. The second most valuable though are content companies, over and above people who just own pipes. And it's really the heart of our business because they reach passionate people. Now, you're probably thinking, therefore, what's the picture, clearly taken in the 70s, of a child with a haircut that only a mother could do with a basin, standing outside a football club that currently languish fifth from bottom in the Premier League, got to do with media? You are, aren't you? But that's me. Okay? And that's my passion. And it's a passion that, unfortunately, I've handed down to my children. So these are my 3 sons. And this handing down passion and how that's related to advertising is quite important. Now, I've used this picture quite a lot, and every time I use the picture, I look at it and think, none of these kids look like me. And so I'm going to have a word with their mother when I get back. But that's what we do. That's the Timings business. It's not a magazine company, it's a content company. We create content for passionate audiences. Now, whether that's Marie Claire, whether that's Marie Claire in print, whether that's Marie Claire in our e-commerce business with Fabled, whether that's cycling, whether it's Cycling Weekly, whether you're at one of our sportifs, or whether it's rugby. I don't know if you know, but if England beat France in the Six Nations, it would be the biggest, longest run of unbeaten and overtakes New Zealand. I'm just putting it out there, that's all I'm saying. Just for you, I thought it appropriate. So we're so keen on passion and understanding passion. We did a survey, 3,200 people, 1 anthropologist, don't ask me why, but we did. And we understood a lot of things. Firstly, it's changed. And I was thinking about this. Why has it changed? Why is people's passion so important and therefore so important to advertisers? Pre-social media, you would describe yourself generally in work terms. I work for so-and-so, etc., etc. Now on social media, you describe yourself through your passion. Because social media means that you as a person, you don't just, I just went for a ride, bicycle ride. I did it in the following time, I did it in Strava, I did it in etc. I don't just like wine, this is me with a fantastic bottle of Montrachet, etc. Social media has changed the way that we think about ourselves and explain ourselves to other people. And therefore our passions have become more and more important to us. Now, anyone under the age of 35 in the room, be careful. How many people are under the age of 35? All of you. Because that stat there, 90% will introduce their children to their passion. So if your parents have any strange passions, ferreting or collecting China dolls or something like that, then you're pretty much likely to have the same thing. But this is the key point. Passionate people spend. They respond to advertising messages more. And I always think that we like Facebook, we like television, we like Snapchat, we like newspapers, but we absolutely love our passions. We love our pastimes. And the critical point here is not only do people spend, but it's context. And I think context of advertising placement is a little bit of a lost art form. And let me explain. So The Guardian recently did a study that said advertising placed in the right context will deliver a plus 40% return on investment, as proven. And there was another piece that advertising placed in the wrong context, that we must be careful that content has an implicit view of a brand. It lends itself, has a halo effect. And just a personal example, because you're a small group and intimate, and I think I know you well enough. Okay? So I'm a man of a certain age, which is old. And that means I get targeted on digital advertising on an age bracket. And I get targeted for pants, undergarments. Yeah? And I don't mean Calvin Klein type pants. I mean pants that men of a certain age get targeted for when they have problems with their Wii function. So first of all, I'm annoyed about being targeted by that. But secondly, when it comes in a stream, let's say particularly the news of what's happening in Syria, or my sister talking about a difficult conversation she had with the postman, the context is all wrong. And this need to actually place advertising in context to get the best return is a very powerful and growing need. And it's not just me saying it either, because there's now, and the fourth point, is there's now research that backs this up. So Ubiquity Payback is a television survey, it's not a print survey, which shows that print is 2.5 times more effective. There's a lot of work done in the States, particularly on ad guarantees. So the industry is guaranteeing in the print medium that if you place advertising, you'll get an ROI of 4 times. And also in the digital landscape, a lot of guarantees that print companies or legacy companies are prepared to put down on viewability and non-human traffic. And I think that it's starting to seep through appropriately. We looked at some data on how brands are starting to lose brand equity over time. And this Millward Brown survey shows that really it's planning that combines different platforms that delivers the best return. And Lindsay Patterson at Maxis, agencies are starting to show that you can't just concentrate on the last click attribution in terms of advertising, you've got to look further out. And this is my 5th and killer point. Well, they're all killer points, but this is the 5th point. This is a forecast on what advertising will look like in the future. That by 2021, 74% of all advertising will be native advertising. Because we can physically see that people are rejecting traditional disruptive advertising. 400 million ad blockers. People preparing to pay for things like Spotify, ad-free environments. People time-shifting television. And native advertising, the biggest opportunity for companies are those people who already produce content. Those people who understand how to reach those passionate consumers we've talked about with native content, with advertising that is seamless within the content stream. But my friends, there is work to do. This wasn't my quote, but it could be. And there was another study that I saw yesterday from the American Advertising Association of Advertisers. that said that there was significant concern about the pervasive nature of some media buying through agencies. And therefore, there is an opportunity for us, and I think why we're at the tipping point, that will shift our thinking towards, less towards robots, more towards Renaissance thinking, practical thinking around those 5 key points. 1, people are starting to talk about it, the rose-tinted spectacles are off. 2, forecasters are starting to see and show the new vision. 3, passionate consumers respond better to commercial messages placed in context. 4, there are significant proof points in the market now showing that cross-platform advertising using all media works better than just the bifurcation of media to television and digital. And 5, the growth of native advertising lends itself to people who are best at creating content. Now, I'm just going to show you one quick thing. Have I got time? Okay. This is what we've been doing. Video, please.
Before we had a record deal, it helped us get a record deal.
Sort of kept underground rock and roll live on a weekly basis.
It's great that the enemy still thinks we're alright and not a bunch of tossers.
Let's hear it for the enemy.
I'm going to leave you with this as an example, really, because it assimilates everything I've been talking about, which is not the legacy media companies versus digital, but how legacy media companies can adapt to the new world and sit at the centre of content creation. And NME is a really good example because in the UK there were 5 paid-for weekly music titles, and now there are no paid-for music weekly titles. Not because people have lost interest in music, but they don't want to wait till Thursday to work out what the Kardashians have been up to. And so you have to adapt. The great thing is the adaptation from a position of content strength. And that's what we now do. We create content, we aggregate content. In fact, it's, you know, you can reuse content. It's, I don't know if you knew, it's 36 years since John Lennon was killed on December the 8th, and that's the biggest trending story still in the enemy lexicon. But now that content has to look like utilisation of all the platforms and monetisation through the growth areas. And the biggest growth area for NME has been native. And these are the last 2 projects we did. And they are, we changed the name to NMD, did a full takeover with Adidas, new artists, and then new artists did a series of live events, and then we ran the interviews with the new artists online. iTunes, which is Britney Spears on the cover, we had a series again of live events with iTunes and a full artist takeover. Now, I'm going to leave you with that because I'm reading Time Out, which of course is a competitor magazine, but we won't go there. So I hope that leaves you with some thoughts, and I hope it helps the existing journey of this conference, because I truly believe there is a renaissance in thinking taking place. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Marcus Rich. Okay, now I'm sure some of you perhaps got a question perhaps you'd like to ask Marcus perhaps.